Hello, we're going to go live in a couple of minutes, okay? All right. Good morning. My name is Richard Hardwick and I'm the National Specification Manager with Supawood. So, welcome to this webinar. We've called this the Get Home and Rest Easy webinar, and we're here to provide you fully compliant specs. So, these are the topics that we're going to cover today in this webinar: fire compliance regs and linings, non-combustible linings, seismic requirements, Green Star and environmental regulations, and understanding your acoustic requirements. Okay, so let's start with the BCA in terms of what they're looking for. Our fire-rated linings are deemed among the least combustible timber products on the market today. This means that they can be used in all critical areas such as fire-isolated exits, lift car interiors, public corridors, and lobbies providing fire egress. Okay. What do we have working in the background to assist you? We can receive, open, and interpret pretty much any software format that your practice might be utilizing, and we can edit your connection detail, send it back to you, and be highly collaborative with it, etc. And we've got lots of history with this. All right, now, running in the background to ensure we're fully compliant, this is everything that we do to support you. We do a lot of research and development. We don't bring any product into the marketplace that is not fully compliant to the current BCA and is not compliant to Green Star or to Acoustics. So everything that we do is fully compliant, and we do research and development in all of these areas. All right, now, what's all the fuss about with regard to compliance? Well, the Australian Building Code Board has identified three major risks to the commercial viability of our construction industry. This was leading up to the 2019 BCA changes. The first one is product substitution, where you as the designer have researched and spec'd a product only to have it substituted, say, by a builder, always basically based on cost. And then why is that product, substitute product used? Because it's cheaper. Why is it cheaper? Typically, number two, fraudulent or misleading product certification. Okay. And the third risk, greater use of performance-based design and assessment. Things like the D&C model, which I refer to quite commonly as the delete and compromise. So, okay, now we're going to look at fire compliant linings. We're going to look at part C110 in clause 4. Now, volume 1, this is where you find C110 in clause 4. Volume 1 of the National Construction Code applies to commercial buildings classes 2 to 9. And C110 relates to fire hazard properties and applies to walls, ceilings, and lift cars, with the same exceptions applied to doors, paints, and joinery, okay? Except for one interesting prohibition, which has now been included, and that is the use of intumescent paints, which are now prohibited from being applied to interior linings because their warranty limitations render their practical application not fit for purpose. Okay, now, Volume 1 of the National Construction Code has this particular meaning to it. So if you ever want to see what the intent of clause 4 is, you go to page 93 of the guide, and it tells you explicitly that the Clause 4 is there to prescribe the fire hazard properties for wall and ceiling linings, that they must be a Group 1, Group 2 or Group 3 material, and cross-referenced in accordance with Table 3, which is under Clause 4, and that those materials must be tested in accordance with AS 5637 Part 1. So how do you get there? You just basically look at the building class that you're working on and cross-reference it against Table 3. So for an example, if you're working on a school, look at 2E and 2F, and they apply to specific areas within schools. Okay. Let me preface this. Look at your class 9B, which is your school, bring it across to 9B under the table, and those are your 4 areas. Those 4 areas have never changed. So fire isolated exits, public corridors, specific areas, and other areas. And then those numbers within those boxes are the group fire ratings that you're allowed to use for your materials within those spaces. And it relates to whether or not you've got sprinklers up, okay? And you'll see that, for instance, in the fire isolated exits, irrespective of whether or not you've got sprinklers up, you've got to use a Group 1 compliant material. And then when you get into the public corridors, like say of your school, if you don't have sprinklers up, you can use Group 1 or Group 2 compliant materials for the walls and the ceilings in the public corridor. If you put sprinklers up, you can also use Group 3. And that's literally how you read this. Now, sometimes people say to me, okay, look, what's a specific area? And this is what I was talking about just a little bit before. Go to the notes underneath Table 3. Number 1 defines your sprinkler. And then for your school, go to 2E and 2F. Those are the specific areas. Now, if you've got an admin building within that school envelope, go up to 2B, okay? And that refers to your offices. Okay, now, the only exception to this with regard to group fire ratings for interior linings, which was ratified at the beginning of 2020, relates to the exterior wall for those commercial buildings once you get from 2 stories and above in your design, okay? These exterior walls are now defined as non-combustible, and C19 states that linings fixed to these non-combustible walls must also be non-combustible elements. This includes aluminium, like our super metal series of panels, slats, battens, and beams. So you can use those on those non-combustible walls. And if you want to talk to us further about these, just contact myself or anyone within Supawood. And whatever we do within the building, we can do on that external wall, okay? Now, what's actually happened to the standard? Under the old standard, there were 2 physical fire tests to which interior linings could be subjected to determine their Group 1, Group 2, or Group 3. One was AS 3837, which is the cone calorimeter test, a 2 cubic meter firebox. The second 9705. Now, leading up to the changes, the Building Code Board asked the testing authorities to take the same interior lining materials and subject them to both physical fire tests to see if there would be any differences in the outcomes. And there were, to the point that the board stepped in and struck out 3837. So 9705, which you're looking at on your screen now, that calibrated kiln, is the only physical fire test that you can reference in a test document. That is the report and the certificate. And this applies to any CC submitted from May 1st, 2019 forward. So if somebody in your current project tries to give you a 3837 certificate and your CC was lodged after May 1st, 2019, you can't accept it, okay? Now, this applies to any interior lining that as a design mechanism employs any joint or opening, okay? So that includes all of our systems because we're acoustic systems, they employ joints or openings. But if you were to say wallpaper employs joints So yes, it falls under this definition. Okay, now the authority is determined that your design impacts the airflow through the joints and opening, and therefore the behavior of the flame. And they have calculated percentage limits to the three forms you utilize in design once you walk away from, say, tilt-up concrete, blockwork, brickwork, and plasterboard. Now, the three forms are panels, battens or slats, whatever you want to call them, and beams. And in the category of beams, they include blades. So, let's look at a panel. That's a panel, and it can be perforated, it can be solid. A slat or a batten looks like this. It's linear, three-dimensional, okay? This is one of our acoustic slats as an example. A beam, it has a chunky, heavy-duty, three-dimensional look. It doesn't need to be structural. Remember, we developed these a long time ago for Centre Group. That's where we started when we developed the Maxi Beam, okay? So it's light, hollow, gives you that structural look. So the beam can be angular, it can be tubular, but that's what they mean by a beam. And they've included the category of blades underneath this category of beam, okay? Because typically the depths are similar. Now, the percentage limits vary from form to form and from group 1, 2, and 3. As an example, if your panel is made up of fire-rated MDF, fire-rated integrated acoustic textile, and the finish type is a concept like our super finish, provided in the design we do not exceed 128% visible surface area, the panel form achieves group 1. The same materials in the slat form, they achieve, the limit for group 1 is 238%. So there is a difference. Now, you're going to say, first, that's not our job as a designer. I don't have the time to calculate the surface area or the percentages for any of these sort of products, right? How do we get around this? All right, well, I'm going to explain exactly what they're doing, all right? There is the detail for what I'm holding up here. So you can see it on your screen. You'll see in column 2 that we can change the perforation diameter, which will give you a different acoustic outcome in column 3, and then you're going to get those visible surface areas in column 4. And your reaction is going to be, well, look, that's not our job. Number 2, you're going to say, well, these are really specific in column 4. How do they get to this? Right, well, this is what they do. Just excuse me while I get my props. They take a solid panel like our Superline with no openings and perforations, and they call that 100% visible surface area. Now that we introduce perforations or slots into the equation, or spaces between the slats or the beams, they calculate those dimensions and they add it to the 100%. So and they've got these different requirements for the different group numbers and the different forms. Now you're going to say, well, that's not us, but how do you guys know this? That's very specific. Well, we dialogued with the authority for a year leading up to the changes to the BCA to understand exactly what it was that they were going to require. Once we understood it, we designed and developed a calculator. It's been ratified, and we've put all of our products through it. And we have basically published it in a very simple ready reckoner called Supawood fire retardant feature linings. Okay. Now, all you have to do to get to this document is go to resources in the top toolbar on our website, www.supawood.com.au. So go to resources, click on that, and you'll see a drop-down list and it'll say fire hazard properties. Click on that, scroll down, you'll get to this PDF. I highly recommend it. We give you a simple description as to what's happening with the BCA changes. Then we give you table 3, we give you classes of building, we give you the notes to table 3. So it's a great ready reckoner to reference for your project, And then we tell you prescriptively group 1, group 2, and group 3 products. So what we're saying, the pain is not in your lap. We've assumed the mantle of responsibility. All you need to know is the form that you want to design with. And then we'll be asking you questions, okay, project name, type of project, whereabouts within the project you want to use our linings on the walls or the ceilings, and we'll help you determine where you need to be. Now, we do not replace your consultant, but we've got 90% expertise to get you where you need to be. The other 10% is the personality of your consultant, which we can't factor in. Now, okay, you might have 2 questions about this. Number 1, can you still customize your design? Because we're known for this. The short answer is yes. All we need to know from you is a detailed dimension of what it is that you're doing. If you give us that detailed dimension, we then put it through our calculator and we can determine where you're going to be. And then we have that collaborative conversation around substrates, finish types, and even tweaking the design if we need to get you to where you need to be, okay? Your second question would be, can I obtain a project-specific compliance report from Supawood? This relates to, if you've got a certifier who says, well, this is not part of their standard range and I want a project-specific. Yes, the answer is yes. If your certifier requires it, and provided there is sufficient scope. We can't do it for small projects. We need a reasonably sized project to make it economically feasible. Now, what do you look for in your fire certification? You want to look for a report and a certificate that has either got a NATA stamp or its equivalent, and in this case, IANZ. What makes them compatible? NATA is National Association of Testing Authorities Australia, as you know. INZ is the New Zealand equivalent. And they are both mutual recognition signatories to the ILAC convention. This means that they're both ISO accredited testing authorities, so they're using the same equipment, calibrated it the same way, the methodology of the test is the same, the results are the same. So they recognise mutually in this convention each other's. So you can accept a certificate provided it's got a NATA or an IANZ stamp on it. European and North American classification doesn't. And also watch out for other so-called testing bodies, or not bodies, but testing companies that don't bear NATA or INZ stamps, okay? Because the authority views those very dimly, okay? Now, let's get on to seismic requirements. This is now enforced. It's always been enforced in Australia for what are regarded as mission critical building types. So airports, hospitals. But 2019, Queensland switched it on, and so did South Australia. And this year, WA has switched it on as well. And it is now starting to creep into New South Wales in my conversations with architects around the place and in Victoria. Some architects are saying my certifier wants to see the seismic compliance. Now, what does it actually mean? It's always been part of 1170 Part 4, which is our structural code. It's never been applied to our interior ceilings for commercial buildings because we don't get earthquakes. Last one we had was in Newcastle in New South Wales in the mid-80s. However, they're very simple. We're a flat continent. So they're called fix and float systems. And people who manufacture the frames, like people like Rondo, are very good with this. And they're called fix and float systems. And they've got an online calculator to assist you as a designer. You just punch in for your information and it assists you with your design. Now, your builder that's tendering for your project goes to that same calculator, punches in their information, and it tells them the kit that they're going to use, so they can therefore price it. Now, what do we do? Once you've got your compliant frame, what do we do for you, for our product against that frame to make it compliant? Okay, you can see on the right-hand side, there is a published detail. That relates to like our acoustic panel on a suspended ceiling. That's our published detail. So the architect in this case told us we're going to use this detail. So we took this detail along with their plans and we give it to our third-party engineer. They then look at the location of your building, the height of it, the soil class, the weight of our product per square metre, and they calculate and write a project-specific design criteria, okay? They then add any additional handwritten notations to our detail, right? They then stamp it, sign it, and date it. We then give that back to you. Now, you would have two questions around this. Number one would be, fantastic. How much? From us, 0. Why? Because we want you compliant. That's part of our customer service. Number two, what if the builder uses this detail but substitutes your product? Okay, what happens there? We've had this happen before. I'll tell you simply, we don't support that kind of building activity. So we've had people come to us in the past saying, look, the builder has swapped out the material, but they've used your detail. Can you give us an opinion? The answer is no. For the same reason that I can't drive my car with your driver's license. It's as simple as that. Okay, now let's look at Green Star environmental and regulations, because we are a Green Star business. And this is what Green Star are looking for. It's run by the Green Building Council of Australia, and they're one of a number of commercial sustainability tools that you've got at your disposal. Okay, now, they want to see sustainable timber, either FSC or PFC timber, low volatile organic compounds, okay, low formaldehyde contents in our products, and they want to see us operating within Lifecycle Assessment, okay, or obtaining third-party certification. Okay, so what is FSC or PFC timber? These come from sustainably managed forests with rigorous third-party certification schemes. Volatile organic compounds, what does that mean? They are typically chemicals, including benzene and acetone, that evaporate or vaporize readily and are harmful to human health. So think asthma, headaches, nausea, those sort of events. Now, you don't want those in your health centres, in your classrooms, in your airports, in your commercial buildings, okay? And they're also harmful to the environment. So all of our finishes are factory applied and are either VOC free or fully cured on delivery to the site. So they all comply with Green Star requirements for VOC minimisation. We're allowed to use that stamp, low VOC, across all of our product suites. Now, formaldehyde is a naturally occurring compound that is found in timber and in glues and used to manufacture wood panels. Now, extremely high concentrations of formaldehyde is deemed carcinogenic, and an association of timber mills who manufacture the wood panels, the EWPAA, worked progressively from the mid-80s forward on reducing formaldehyde content in their products. And it's now standardized under emissions class. That's how formaldehyde is governed, under another ISO assignation emissions class. And everything that we do is E1 and low 0. So we're best in class. E0 and E1 is considered best in class, okay? Now, the other thing that they're looking for is life cycle assessment, which covers the entire life cycle of a product, including where the raw material is sourced, how it's manufactured, including wastage and energy used in the manufacture, and finally, how it's disposed of when the product has reached the end of its natural life or its useful life, okay? Whatever you want to call it. So in other words, does this go into landfill? The short answer is no. These products are mechanically applied to frames, and the same piece of equipment that put it up can deinstall it, and you can use it in another building. Now, I've had architects who've said, well, I need the specific design to make that work. Well, Actually, no. That's why we've got things like our solid panels. Besides being reflective, our Superline makes for a great border if you've got a different shaped wall. So in practice, you're really going to be sacrificing the perimeter panels if the size of the wall isn't the same, okay? And then you can put our solid panels around the perimeter to form that border. Then you use the acoustics, one join in. Okay, simple as that. Now, do we really get into recycling? Yes, we do. There you're looking at it, the Linfield Learning Village, which is a new project. It's been completed. It's on Sydney's Lower North Shore. Design Inc. and their heritage architect know that we do this kind of work. So this was originally designed and built in the early 70s. They wanted to repurpose the original timber slats, which were milled and nailed up by a carpenter. And they wanted to preserve this as part of the heritage. So they had them de-installed, shipped to us in the bundles that you can see. We pulled the nails out, stripped them back, repurposed them into proper acoustic panels, shipped them back, bang, done. So yes, we do. Okay. Now, the other environmental tools that you've got at your disposal, which we are fully compliant with, are these: LEEDs, neighbours, and well. And they're all basically, they've basically got their own requirements, but we cover all of them. So just talk to us. And all of them recognise good acoustics as part of the assessment process. So we're going to get into acoustics now, all right? Now, the difference between building acoustics and room acoustics is that building acoustics is all about blocking sound, okay, and it's measured by sound transmission coefficient. That's not what our products do. Our products are all about room acoustics, which is the reverberation control within that space, okay? So if you've got the sound coming through an open window, then our products can then deal with it once it enters the room. But we don't block the sound coming in from the outside. We don't block it from room to room, floor to floor. That's all about building acoustics. Okay, so what is sound absorption? All materials have got a coefficient, and this is where we started all those years ago. Okay, so sound is an energy. You can't destroy energy, you can convert it. So when we first developed the integrated acoustic textile and proved it to the acoustic standard, the way that it works is that as sound uses the medium of air to travel forward and the air molecules hit that fabric, to push through, they have to speed up, and in doing so, create heat. And they convert the energy of sound to the energy of heat as it passes through. But that means these require an air gap behind them to make them work. And all building materials are given a coefficient between 0 and 1. Okay, materials like concrete, plasterboard, glass, marble, steel, they're 0. Perfect reflection of sound. 1 is the most absorption. Okay, now, best way to test it is the way that we like our materials being tested, and that is under ISO 354-2006. In other words, just as with the fire test, this is in a standardized room that utilizes the standard framing materials that you're employing in your design. And then our materials are put to those frames, and then the product is measured. So our tip is that whatever absorbing material you use, make sure the mounting procedure used in the test is consistent with your intended installation. If you want the same results that, is being published in that provider's data sheets. Okay, so we're true to form. Okay, how do you summarize it? Basically, we don't care which language you speak, what acoustic language you speak, NRC or AW weighted. We speak both, and we have our own affiliated acoustic engineer. The difference between the two is that NRC is a quick ready reckoner that is a medium of 4 values, 250, 500, 1000 and 2000 hertz, but doesn't provide the subtle variations between low, medium and high frequencies. Whilst the AW weighted uses a reference curve over 5 values up to and including 4000 hertz and provides the suffixes of low, medium, medium, high and high. Now, we publish in AW weighted, but again, we don't care what language you speak. But you would probably find if you're doing a mission critical, like say a performing arts centre, whoever is going to be your provider for your acoustic interiors, hopefully us, you'll probably want them publishing in AW to give you the precision that you require within those spaces. Okay, that's why we publish in AW. All right, this gives you everything that I've spoken about up to and including now. We support with all of our testing and documentation. This allows you as a designer and a builder to specify and build with peace of mind, because we believe it is your inherent right as an architect or as a designer that you should be able to specify with peace of mind. And inherently, your client has got every right to use the amenity of the building that you designed with peace of mind. So we don't do shades of grey, as you can see. And there you can see like an example of one of our 5 certificates, and they're all current. Our 2 certificates relating to FSC and PFC for our Green Star, and our acoustics on the right. Okay, now we're going to look at the products attributes table. When you look at this, just select the right product for your application. You just refer to this, and then you speak to us regarding any questions you may have for your project and for the product. Now, I'll give you an example. If you look, like say, at our Super Acoustic, third from the top on the left-hand side, and you go across the applications, wherever you see the solid dot, that is a given for that product's use in that application. Fixed wall, fixed ceiling, floating ceiling, or curved or multi-curved. You can see there you can't use it as a screen. But if you need a screen, as you can see in applications, you drop down to our Super Slat Aluminium or our AliClick or our Maxi Beam or our wave blades. They can be used as screen products, okay, etc. Then the 5 groups that they're available in, the standard lengths and widths, which it can be customizable, and then the sustainability aspect, that's a hollow dot. And that hollow dot means it's still yes, you just need to advise us which one you would like to use, okay? Our consultants will always ask you, besides your fire and about your acoustics, we'll always ask you whether or not you are designing sustainably. And if you say yes, we're going to say, well, would you like to use PFC or FSC timber? It is up to you, okay? And then you can see, like say, all of our products are low VOC or E0. And then when we get into access, again, some products of ours are 100% accessible by definition, like drop-in tiles. Everything else, it's your choice. If you want accessibility, we build that access within the panel. The builder's not cutting our panel, right? The panel comes to the site with the hatch already installed. They're being employed just to put the panel into its place. And then our acoustics are there. All right, now, what I'm going to do now is just wrap this up by showing you a testimonial from Andre Callanan, a senior associate at BVN, talking about the new Marrickville Community Library. All right, so here we go.
Supawood was chosen early on in regards to this project because we were looking for a material which obviously went with the rest of the timber palette, and it was one that we needed aesthetics and acoustics behind. We knew that your product, the Supawood product, was, there was a time at which we needed to check back in because the project is such a long-running project, just to see if we were still compliant with our acoustics, fire ratings. Worked with Supawood before, your product, we were familiar with it. We've used it on Ravenswood Girls School and at Plant Bank. It was just a very easy process. We knew that we could get all the specific.
Sorry, guys. Something happened with the something happened there with the actual. I'll see if I can advance it along for you. My sincere apologies.
It was chosen early on in regards to this project because we were looking for a material which obviously went with the rest of the timber palette, and it was one that we needed aesthetics and acoustics behind, and we knew that your product was
All right, my apologies, guys. It seems not to be behaving. So look, that wraps up our presentation. Now, what I would welcome you to do is contact myself directly or my EA, Charlene Betcher, if you would like some assistance with any of your current projects, or if you would like to discuss any questions that you may have in relation to this presentation. All right. Thank you very much and have a great day. Bye for now. Wow.